Welcome to Romance Tales by Mandy. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin.
The email came at 2:47 a.m. I wasn't asleep. I never am at that hour. Instead, I was sitting at my kitchen counter, nursing a glass of wine and going through a case file for another overpaid executive who had gotten himself into trouble. That's what I do. I fix disasters for rich men who think they're invincible until they aren't. But this was different.
Urgent. Discretion required. Immediate legal counsel needed for Ethan Lancaster.
Ethan Lancaster. The name alone sent a chill down my spine. Everyone in the legal and financial world knew who he was. CEO of Lancaster Enterprises. Ruthless. Brilliant. A man who built his empire by crushing anyone in his way. If Wall Street had a king, he was it, cold, calculating, untouchable. And now he needed help. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the email, my pulse quickening. Ethan Lancaster wasn't the type to get caught up in scandals. He was too careful, too meticulous. If he was reaching out for legal counsel, it meant one thing: whatever was happening was bad. My first instinct? Say no. I had no interest in working for a man whose reputation preceded him in the worst way. I'd seen him in action, his icy blue stare that could freeze a room, the way he spoke in clipped, efficient words like feelings were beneath him. He was known for firing employees without blinking, shutting down entire companies without hesitation. But then I read the second line of the email.
Compensation. Name your price.
I exhaled slowly, rolling my wine glass between my fingers. This could change everything. Not just for my career, but for me. The kind of money a man like Lancaster was willing to throw at a problem like this? It could buy my freedom. The power to walk away from cases I hated. The chance to finally build something for myself instead of constantly proving I belonged in a world designed for men like him. I closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I would walk into his office. And that's where the real trouble would begin.
I hate lawyers. They talk too much. They twist words, spin lies, and act like they know everything. I've dealt with the best and the worst of them. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that trust is a currency they don't deal in. So when my assistant tells me my new legal counsel has arrived, I don't even look up from my computer. Send him in, I say. There's a brief pause. Then,
It's a her, sir.
I stop typing. That gets my attention. I glance at the door just as she walks in. Savannah Carter. I recognize the name instantly. She's been making waves in high-profile corporate cases, taking down men twice her age and leaving a trail of ruined reputations in her wake. The legal world calls her brilliant, cutthroat, a woman who plays the game better than most men. And now she's standing in my office, looking at me like she's already decided I'm a problem she needs to solve. She's wearing a sleek black suit, her dark hair cascading in perfect waves over her shoulders. Confident, sharp, and those eyes, deep brown like aged whiskey, assessing me, reading me, trying to decide how difficult I'm going to be. She has no idea. I lean back in my chair, watching as she strides across the room and drops a file onto my desk.
You're in trouble.
She says, no hesitation, no pleasantries. A slow smirk tugs at the corner of my mouth. So I've been told. She doesn't react, doesn't blink. Most people hesitate under my stare. Most people fidget, clear their throats, stumble over their words. Not Savannah Carter. She pulls out a chair, sits across from me, and crosses one leg over the other, like she owns the damn room.
Before we begin, let's get one thing straight. I don't work for you. I work with you. You want me to clean up this mess? You'll listen to what I say when I say it.
I arch an eyebrow. Bold.
You don't like lawyers, do you? Mr. Lancaster?
She asks, tilting her head slightly. And oh, I admit, she smirks.
Good. Because I don't like CEOs who think they're above the law.
I exhale sharply, half amusement, half irritation. She's going to be a pain in my ass. And for the first time in a long time, I'm almost looking forward to it.
The numbers don't lie. I've spent the last 3 hours in a dimly lit conference room, poring over financial reports, leaked emails, and the growing wildfire of headlines that all point to one thing: Ethan Lancaster is standing at the edge of a cliff, and if he makes one wrong move, he's going to fall. Hard. This isn't just bad, I say, closing the folder in front of me. It's nuclear. Across the table, Ethan sits perfectly still, his fingers laced together, his expression unreadable. Most people, when faced with the possibility of losing everything, show some sign of panic. A twitch. A clenched jaw. Anything. Not him.
Tell me.
He says, voice calm. Controlled. I exhale, pushing the folder toward him. An anonymous source leaked internal documents suggesting insider trading. Someone inside your company is feeding the media just enough to create a scandal, but not enough to prove it's false. I tap the file. If the SEC decides to investigate, they'll rip your company apart. Your board is already considering damage control, and in their eyes, that means removing you. Ethan doesn't even blink.
I built this company.
He says, his voice dangerously low.
They wouldn't dare.
I scoff. Oh, they would. And if you don't give them a reason to stand by you, they will. Silence. For a moment, the only sound in the room is the faint hum of the city below us. New York never sleeps, and neither does corporate greed. Someone in Lancaster Enterprises wants him out, and they're playing the long game. He leans back, watching me carefully.
What's your recommendation?
I hesitate. Because I know exactly what needs to be done, but I also know he's going to hate it. You need a distraction, I say finally. Something big. Something public. I meet his gaze. Something personal. His brow furrows.
What are you suggesting?
I set my hands on the table, steadying myself. A marriage. The air between us shifts. For the first time since I walked into this mess, Ethan Lancaster actually looks caught off guard.
A marriage?
His tone is sharp, like he's waiting for the punchline. I hold my ground. The media's focus is on your company. We changed the narrative. Give them something else to talk about, something so scandalous, so shocking, that this entire investigation takes a backseat. He exhales, dragging a hand through his hair.
And who exactly am I supposed to marry?
My pulse kicks up. I already know the answer. I am the answer. But I let the silence do the talking. Let him figure it out. Let him feel the weight of what I'm about to say. And then, finally, I see it. The moment it clicks. His blue eyes darken, scanning my face like he's trying to determine if I'm serious. I am. I fucking am.
I don't beg. Not for deals. Not for power. Not for anything. And yet, as I sit across from Savannah Carter in my office, laying out the only plan that might keep my company from crumbling, it feels like begging. And I fucking hate it. She doesn't speak right away. Just stares at me, lips slightly parted, as if she can't believe what I just said. A marriage. To her. Her brows pulled together, a flicker of something between shock and outrage flashing in those dark eyes.
Wait. Me?
I arch a brow. You're surprised? She lets out a breathy, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head.
You think I'm the best option for this?
I lean back, watching her carefully. It was your idea, Carter. That stuns her into silence. I don't give her a chance to argue. You sat right there and told me a marriage would be the perfect distraction, that it would shift the media's focus and stop the board from turning on me. I tilt my head. Did you think I proposed to a stranger? She crosses her arms, her gaze locked onto mine.
I didn't think you'd actually consider it.
Well, I did. My voice is measured, controlled, and you're the only logical choice. She exhales sharply, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling window, arms still crossed, tension in every step. I let her sit with it, let her feel the weight of it. Finally, she turns back to me.
And when the scandal dies down, what then? Divorce and hope no one questions it?
That would be the logical step. She tilts her head slightly, studying me.
And if I say no?
I hold her gaze, my patience thinning. You won't, I say simply. Her eyes flare.
You're so goddamn arrogant.
I don't deny it, because she's already considering it. I can see the wheels turning, the calculations. Savannah Carter doesn't do anything without weighing every possible outcome. She stands abruptly, palms flat on my desk as she leans in, close enough that I can see the fire in her eyes.
If I do this, we do it my way. No surprises. No bullshit.
I arch a brow. Are you saying yes? A long pause. Then finally,
I'm saying I need a drink.
She turns on her heel and strides toward the door. I watch her go, knowing I've won this round. But something tells me that marrying Savannah Carter, that's a war I might just lose.
I should say no. Everything in me is screaming to run, to get as far away from this impossible, reckless, infuriating arrangement as humanly possible. But then Ethan slides the contract across the table. And I see the number. A number so obscene, so life-altering, that for a second, my breath catches.
Take your time,
He says, leaning back in his chair like he already knows my answer. Like he's just waiting for me to fold. Arrogant bastard. I force my expression to stay neutral as I skim the details. A 1-year marriage. A strictly professional arrangement. Full discretion. No personal entanglements. And a payout that could set me up for the rest of my life. This isn't just money. This is power. Influence. Connections that could turn my career into something unstoppable. I exhale, setting the contract down carefully. You think you can just throw a number at me and I'll roll over? Ethan's lips twitch.
I think you're too smart to walk away from an opportunity like this.
He's right. And I hate that he's right. I lean forward, meeting his gaze. If I do this, we do it on my terms. His brows lift slightly.
I'm listening.
No surprises. No secrets. We go public with a carefully controlled story, and we stick to it. The second this becomes more complicated than it needs to be, I walk. Ethan tilts his head, considering.
Fair.
And one more thing. I pause, making sure he's paying attention. No sex. A flicker of amusement crosses his face.
Was that on the table?
I roll my eyes. I mean it, Lancaster. This is a business arrangement. I'm not interested in.
Relax, Carter.
His voice drops just slightly, enough to send something irritatingly warm down my spine.
You're not my type.
I scoff, ignoring the way my pulse jumps at that. Good. Then we won't have a problem. He watches me for a long moment, like he's testing me. Pushing, just to see if I'll push back. Then, finally, he nods.
Deal.
I exhale, gripping the pen beside me. I never thought I'd agree to something like this. Never thought I'd willingly tie myself to a man like Ethan Lancaster. But as I press the pen to paper, signing away the next year of my life, one thought lingers in the back of my mind. What the hell have I just done?
I don't follow rules. I make them. I enforce them. And when they stop serving me, I break them. Yet here I am, listening to Savannah Carter list out her terms like she actually thinks she has control over this situation. She sits across from me, posture straight, voice crisp, laying out her conditions like a goddamn contract negotiation.
No surprises, no scandals. No mixed signals in public.
I exhale slowly, tapping my fingers against the desk. Anything else, Your Honor? Her jaw tightens.
I'm serious, Lancaster.
So am I. Serious about not letting some overconfident lawyer dictate how I run my life. I lean forward, resting my elbows on the desk. Let me be clear about something, Carter. This is my company, my reputation. And if you think for 1 second that you get to call the shots here, you're mistaken. She doesn't flinch, doesn't even blink. She just tilts her head, watching me like she's already 2 moves ahead.
You need me. And that means you don't get to bulldoze your way through this like you do with everything else.
I almost smirk. Almost. Instead, I sit back, exuding nothing but controlled indifference. You think you can handle me, Carter? Her lips curve slightly.
I don't think. I know.
I study her for a long moment. Savannah Carter doesn't scare easily. Most people hesitate around me, measure their words, tread carefully. But her? She enjoys this. The challenge. The fight. And I'd be lying if I said that didn't make things interesting. I stand, walking around the desk until I'm right in front of her. She doesn't move, doesn't break eye contact. This arrangement works on my terms, I say, my voice low. You might be calling the shots in court, Carter, but in this, I lead. You follow. She exhales, slow and controlled. But I catch the way her fingers tighten slightly on the chair. She stands, matching my stance, barely a breath of space between us.
Keep telling yourself that, Lancaster.
And just like that, she turns and walks out of my office. I watch her go, my pulse steady, my expression unreadable. But deep down, I know one thing for damn sure. Savannah Carter just declared war, and I don't lose.
This was supposed to be easy. A perfectly choreographed moment. A distraction for the cameras. But as Ethan's hand settles on my waist and he leans in, I realize I've made a mistake. Because nothing about this feels like acting. The flashing lights surround us, reporters shouting questions, the crowd watching our every move. Our engagement announcement is the story of the moment, and everyone wants to see proof that it's real. So Ethan gives them exactly what they want. His hand tightens on my waist, pulling me in just enough to make my breath catch. His other hand slides up my arm, slow, deliberate, like he's making a point. Then, he kisses me. And the world vanishes. His lips press against mine with a confidence that makes my stomach tighten, firm but unhurried, like he has all the time in the world. Like he knows damn well what he's doing. I was prepared for something calculated. Something cold. But this? This is heat. Control. A slow, devastating unraveling. I should pull away. Should remind myself this is not real. But my fingers betray me, gripping the fabric of his suit just slightly, my body reacting before my mind can stop it. Ethan must notice, because his grip tightens for a fraction of a second, like he's testing me. Like he wants to know just how far he can push before I shove him away. And I almost do. Almost. But then he pulls back, just an inch, his lips barely brushing mine as he exhales.
Smile, Carter.
He murmurs, his breath warm against my mouth.
We have an audience.
My heart pounds in my chest. I force a smile, blinking away the fog in my brain as I turn toward the cameras, playing my part. Ethan does the same, wrapping an arm around my waist as he addresses the reporters like nothing just happened. Like that kiss wasn't the most dangerous thing we've done yet.
I don't get distracted. Not by deals, not by threats, and definitely not by a woman who thrives on pushing every one of my buttons. And yet, I can still feel the ghost of her lips on mine. It's been hours since that kiss, since I pulled her in, since she looked up at me with just the slightest hesitation before her fingers curled into my suit. She reacted, and I felt it. That should have been the end of it. A strategic move. A well-played act. Nothing more. So why the hell am I still thinking about it? I exhale sharply, loosening my tie as I pace the length of my office. The city lights stretch beyond the window, but my mind is stuck on her. The way she tastes like something dark and sweet. The way she fit against me like she belonged there. I hate it. I hate that she lingers. That she's under my skin in a way no one has ever been. Savannah Carter is a means to an end. A sharp, ruthless attorney with enough ambition to set the world on fire. We're playing the same game, and I have every intention of winning. But tonight, when she looked at me after that kiss, when she realized, just as I did, that something about it felt too real, I had the briefest, most reckless thought. I wonder what she'd do if I kissed her again. And that is unacceptable.
If hell had a dining table, I'm pretty sure it would look exactly like this. A long, gleaming mahogany table. Crystal glasses that probably cost more than my rent. A dining room so absurdly extravagant it looks like something out of a historical drama. And at the head of it all, Ethan's mother, Victoria Lancaster, watching me like a queen assessing whether or not she wants to execute her guest.
Savannah, I must admit I was surprised when Ethan told us about the engagement.
She says smoothly, taking a slow sip of wine. Liar. Nothing about Victoria Lancaster is ever surprised. This is a woman who sees everything coming before it happens. And right now, I can feel her gaze slicing through me like she's trying to uncover every secret I've ever had. Ethan, of course, is completely unbothered. He sits beside me, perfectly at ease, swirling the whiskey in his glass like this entire conversation isn't a trap waiting to be sprung.
She's full of surprises.
Ethan says, voice smooth, casual. But under the table, his hand finds my thigh, tightening just slightly. A silent warning. Stick to the story. Play your part. I flash Victoria my most polite, harmless fiancé smile. I guess it happened fast. But when you know, you know. Across the table, Ethan's brother, Nicholas, lets out a quiet snort.
Right. Love at first sight?
I swear Ethan's fingers flex against my leg for half a second, but his expression remains perfectly controlled.
It's not about love. It's about power. We make sense together.
Ethan says, taking a slow sip of whiskey. The room goes dead silent. Jesus Christ. I resist the urge to elbow him under the table. The whole point of this dinner is to sell the fairy tale, and this man just threw romance into a goddamn shredder in front of his entire family. Victoria raises a perfectly sculpted brow.
How pragmatic of you.
Ethan shrugs.
You didn't raise me to be sentimental.
The tension at the table thickens, something unspoken passing between mother and son. I don't know what the hell their history is, but I can feel it, heavy, complicated, sharp-edged. I decide it's time to take control. I shift slightly, my hand landing over Ethan's, fingers brushing just enough to make a point. What Ethan means, I say smoothly, turning my most convincing smile on his mother, is that we balance each other out. He keeps me grounded. I remind him not to work himself into an early grave. We work. I feel Ethan watching me, feel the heat of his gaze. But I don't dare look at him. Victoria takes another slow sip of wine, considering.
Well,
She says finally, setting down her glass.
I suppose time will tell.
And just like that, the conversation shifts. Talk turns to business. Politics. Nothing personal. But under the table, Ethan's hand hasn't moved. And neither has mine.
I don't get jealous. That's what I tell myself as I watch Savannah laugh at something that asshole just said. We're at some overpriced cocktail event, another public appearance to solidify our engagement. The room is filled with New York's elite, all sipping champagne and pretending to like each other. I can handle that. I know how to play the game. What I don't know how to handle is the way Savannah is smiling up at this guy like he's the most interesting person in the room. James fucking Calloway. Harvard-educated, clean-cut, obnoxiously charming. And apparently Savannah's ex. I shouldn't care. This arrangement between us is business. Nothing more. So why the hell do I feel like putting my fist through the nearest wall? I take a slow sip of whiskey, watching them from across the room. He leans in slightly, saying something low, and she laughs soft, familiar. Too familiar. I grip my glass a little tighter. She hasn't noticed me watching yet. Hasn't seen the way my jaw tightens every time he touches her arm. Every time his gaze lingers a second too long. It's nothing. It should be nothing. But then, as if sensing me, she finally glances in my direction. Our eyes lock across the room, and for the briefest second I see it. Recognition. Awareness. Like she knows exactly what this is doing to me. And then she does something I don't expect. She smirks. That's it. Before I've even made a conscious decision, I'm moving, crossing the room in slow, deliberate strides until I'm right there, standing next to her, sliding a possessive hand around her waist. Savannah. My voice is calm, smooth, dangerous. James looks at me, all polite smiles and fake charm.
Ethan, didn't see you there?
Liar. Savannah tilts her head up at me, amusement flickering in her gaze.
James and I were just catching up.
I don't take my eyes off her as I reply. Is that so? She doesn't blink. Neither do I. A challenge. A game. And right now, I have no intention of losing.
Ethan Lancaster thinks he can intimidate me. That's cute. If he wants to play the role of the jealous fiancé, fine. But two can play that game. The moment he slid his hand around my waist last night, muscles tight, jaw clenched, like he was staking a claim, I knew exactly what was happening. He can deny it all he wants. Tell himself it's just about the arrangement, about keeping up appearances. But I saw it. I felt it. And now? Now I want to see just how far I can push him. Tonight, we're at another event, some charity gala with enough champagne and artificial smiles to last a lifetime. Ethan is across the room, caught in conversation with some high-powered executives. His focus should be on them. But instead, I can feel his gaze flickering to me. Watching. Good. Because I want him to watch. I let my fingers graze the forearm of the man I'm speaking to, Ryan Holt, a corporate attorney I've worked with before. He's attractive, confident, and best of all, he's completely oblivious to the game I'm playing. I laugh at something he says, tilting my head just slightly. And then, across the room, I see it. The way Ethan's entire body goes still. The way his hand tightens around his glass. Interesting. I continue talking to Ryan, making sure to touch his arm again, just to see. Ethan moves. I barely have time to process it before he's at my side, one hand sliding around my waist, pulling me against him in one smooth, unapologetic motion. I glance up, pretending to be surprised. Ethan. His expression is controlled, but his fingers press into my hip just enough to send a message.
Savannah, having fun?
He murmurs, low enough that only I can hear. Oh, so much fun. But I just smile, resting a hand on his chest in a mockingly affectionate gesture. Of course. Ryan and I were just catching up. Ryan, to his credit, senses the shift in energy and clears his throat.
I should go check in with my colleagues.
Smart man. And just like that, Ethan and I are alone. I don't move from his hold. Neither does he.
Are we playing games now?
His voice is low, rough. I look up at him, letting my fingers trace idly over the fabric of his suit. You tell me. His eyes darken, his grip tightening just slightly. And for the first time, I wonder if maybe, just maybe, I pushed him a little too far.
This was supposed to be just business. A deal. A contract. A strategic move to protect my company and my reputation. But somewhere between the stage smiles and the public appearances, something shifted. And I hate it. I hate that I noticed the way Savannah tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear when she's deep in thought. I hate that I know exactly how she likes her coffee in the morning, black, but with just a drop of vanilla, because life is bitter enough. I hate that when she's not around, the penthouse feels empty. And I really hate the fact that, tonight, at yet another gala filled with people who thrive on gossip, I saw her before I saw anything else. She's across the room, laughing at something someone said, her hand lightly resting on the table, fingers drumming idly. The dress she's wearing is deep red, silk hugging her body like it was made for her. And I swear, for a second, I forget. Forget that this is all for show. Forget that we're supposed to be pretending. Forget that in a few months this whole thing will be over. She turns her head, eyes meeting mine from across the room. And just like that, the air shifts. Something tightens in my chest, something unfamiliar. Unwanted. I down the rest of my drink and move. By the time I reach her, she's smirking, as if she knows exactly what she's doing to me.
Ethan, having fun?
She says smoothly, no, not when every single person in this room is background noise except for her. Not when the idea of losing this, losing her, feels unacceptable. I slip a hand around her waist, pulling her close enough that she has to tilt her head to look up at me. Let's go, I say, my voice lower than I intended. Her lips part slightly, but she doesn't argue. I lead her away from the crowd, away from the flashing cameras, away from the performance. And for the first time since this all started, I wonder if this is just an act. Why does it feel so damn real?
Something isn't right. I don't know when exactly the feelings started creeping in, maybe when I noticed the way Ethan shuts down every time I mention the scandal, or how his answers are always just a little too polished, a little too carefully constructed. But tonight, I'm sure of it. The penthouse is quiet, the city skyline stretching out in a sea of lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ethan is in his office, door locked, his voice low as he takes a call. And I'm standing in the hallway, listening. I shouldn't be. I know that. But something about the way he said,
"We handle this my way, or it all falls apart,"
sends a chill down my spine. A part of me wants to march in there, demand answers. But the other part, the smarter part, knows that Ethan Lancaster only tells the truth when he's cornered. So, I'll have to find it myself. I move, quiet, deliberate, slipping into his private study while I still have the chance. The room is immaculate, just like the rest of the penthouse, minimalist, controlled, impersonal. A reflection of the man himself. Except for his desk. There, everything is precise but active. Stacks of neatly organized documents, an open laptop, a crystal glass with the faintest trace of whiskey left inside. I move toward the laptop first. It's locked, of course, but that doesn't stop me from trying. Incorrect password. Damn it. I shift my focus, scanning the documents instead. Most of them are standard business reports, financial projections, board meeting notes. But then I see it. A single folder, tucked beneath the others, labeled with nothing but a date. And when I open it, my stomach twists. Because whatever Ethan has been hiding, it's so much worse than I thought.
She knows. I see it in her eyes the second I walk into the penthouse. She's standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, her posture stiff, but it's the look on her face that stops me cold. Betrayal, disappointment, and something that feels an awful lot like hatred. I set my keys down on the counter, my movements slow, controlled. Savannah, she doesn't blink.
How long were you planning to lie to me?
I exhale sharply, my jaw tightening. Of course, she went digging. Of course, she found out. I should have seen this coming. I move toward her, but she steps back. And that stings more than I care to admit. You don't understand, I say, my voice measured, careful.
Then explain it to me.
Her voice is sharp, but there's something else beneath it, something raw.
Explain why you've been covering up the fact that your company didn't just have a security breach. It orchestrated one.
My stomach clenches. It's not that simple.
No?
She lets out a hollow laugh.
Because from where I'm standing, it's exactly that simple. You faked a leak to manipulate the board, to consolidate power.
Silence. Because she's right. And she knows it. Savannah shakes her head, her expression shifting from fury to something worse. Something that makes my chest feel too damn tight.
I defended you. I stood by you. And the whole time, you let me believe you were the victim.
She whispers. Her voice cracks at the end. And I hate that sound. I should fix this. Say something. Do anything to make her understand. But for the first time in my life, I don't know what to say. Because I know the truth. And the truth is, I'm about to lose her.
I throw the last of my things into my suitcase, my hands shaking so badly I can barely zip it shut. I need to get out of here. The penthouse feels different now, like the walls are closing in, like I can still hear his voice in every corner, still feel his presence in every room. How could I have been so stupid? I let myself believe that, beneath all that arrogance, all that cold calculation, there was something real. That maybe, just maybe, Ethan Lancaster wasn't as heartless as the world believed. I was wrong. I was so wrong. My eyes burn, but I refuse to cry. I refuse to give him that. A sharp knock at the bedroom door makes me freeze.
Savannah.
His voice is low, rough. I swallow hard, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Go away, Ethan. He doesn't. Of course he doesn't. Instead, I hear the door creak open, his footsteps moving closer.
I know you're angry.
I laugh, a sharp, humorless sound. Angry? No, Ethan, I'm done. Silence. I finally turn, gripping the suitcase handle so tightly my knuckles ache. Ethan is standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. But his eyes look like a man who knows he just lost. I push past him, my shoulder brushing his as I walk out. He doesn't stop me. And that hurts more than anything else.
The silence is unbearable. For the first time in my life, I hate the quiet. I sit in the penthouse, a glass of whiskey untouched in my hand, staring at the door she walked out of. It's been 2 days, and the place feels empty in a way I didn't think was possible. She's gone, and I let her go. That should have been the end of it. That was always the plan. But something is wrong with me. I can't focus, can't sleep, can't do a damn thing without replaying the look on her face when she realized the truth. I've never cared about being the villain before. Hell, I embraced it. It's how I built my empire, how I survived. But with Savannah, I don't want to be the villain in her story. I grab my keys before I can think twice. I don't do this. I don't chase. I don't ask for forgiveness. But for the first time in my life, I need to. And I need to do it face to face. I push out of the penthouse and into the waiting car, my pulse steady, my mind set. I'm going to her. And this time, I won't let her walk away.
The knock on my door is firm. Determined. I freeze. No one knocks at this hour. Not in this neighborhood. Not at my personal apartment, the one I never told Ethan about. Except he's the only person I can imagine standing on the other side. I take a breath, my heart hammering as I walk to the door. I don't want to see him. I do. I hate him. I don't. When I pull the door open, Ethan Lancaster is standing there, soaked to the bone, rain dripping from his hair onto the sharp line of his jaw. His suit jacket is gone, his white dress shirt clinging to his body, open at the collar like he tore at it on the way here. And his eyes. They aren't cold. They aren't sharp. They are raw. Unsteady. Desperate. I cross my arms, bracing myself. What are you doing here? He exhales, like he's been holding his breath since the moment I walked out. And then he says it. The words I never thought I'd hear from Ethan Lancaster.
I can't lose you.
I swallow hard. My fingers tighten around the door frame. I should slam it in his face. I should tell him he already did. But I don't move. Because for the first time since I met him, I don't see the ruthless CEO. I see the man underneath. And it changes everything.
She hasn't closed the door. That has to mean something. Rain drips from my hair, soaking into my shirt as I stand in the doorway, waiting for her to slam the door in my face, to tell me I deserve this silence, that I deserve to be alone. But she doesn't. She just stares at me, eyes filled with something I can't decipher. I take a breath. Savannah. Her arms are still crossed, but there's a tremble in her fingers, like she's holding herself together with sheer force of will.
There's no contract anymore.
She says, her voice quieter than I've ever heard it.
No obligation. No reason for you to be here.
She's wrong. I step closer, the threshold between us feeling impossibly small and impossibly wide all at once. I love you. The words leave my lips, and they feel right. I never thought I'd say them. Not to anyone. But Savannah Carter isn't anyone. She inhales sharply, her eyes shining, and for a second, I think I've lost. Then, she grabs the front of my shirt, pulling me inside, pulling me to her, and crashes her lips against mine. It's not gentle. It's not sweet. It's everything we are. Intense. Consuming. Inevitable. Maybe this was always where we were headed. Not the last chapter. The first.
Some stories end with a kiss. Ours began with one. I wake up to the weight of Ethan's arm draped over my waist, his fingers tracing slow, absent-minded circles on my hip. His touch is warm, grounding. Outside, the city hums with early morning life, but in here, everything is still. Suspended. Like the universe itself is holding its breath. I turn slightly, just enough to watch him. His eyes are still closed, but I know he's awake. Ethan Lancaster is not the kind of man who sleeps in, not the kind of man who lingers. He's always been sharp edges, ruthless efficiency, and control. Until now. Now, he's here. With me.
You're staring.
His voice is rough with sleep, deep and low in the quiet room. I smirk, shifting closer. I'm memorizing the face of the man who just said he loves me. One eye cracks open, and the corner of his mouth lifts in that arrogant, devastating smirk that used to drive me insane. It still does. Just differently.
Need me to say it again?
He murmurs. I drag my fingers down his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my palm. Strong. Solid. Mine. You love me, I whisper. His grip tightens on my waist.
And you love me.
I should say it back. I want to say it back. Instead, I push myself up and swing one leg over his hips, straddling him. His breath hitches, his hands settling on my thighs. The control he always holds so tightly flickers in his eyes, barely restrained. I lean down, brushing my lips against his. Make me say it. His answering growl is low, dark, full of promise. And as his hands slide up my body, as his lips claim mine, I realize something. This isn't the end of our story. It's the beginning.
6 months ago, I married Savannah Carter. It wasn't real. Not the way it should have been. It was signatures on a paper, rehearsed smiles for the cameras, and a vow that held no weight in either of our hearts. At least, that's what we told ourselves. Now she's standing on our rooftop terrace, barefoot, wrapped in a silk robe, lost in thought as she gazes at the city skyline. The engagement ring, the one that was meant to be temporary, glints under the soft glow of the city lights as she absently twirls it on her finger. I step closer, slipping my arms around her waist, pulling her back against my chest. She exhales, leaning into me like she belongs there. Because she does.
Our contract expires soon.
She murmurs. I hate that she's thinking about it. I press a slow kiss to the side of her neck, feeling her shiver. I know. She turns in my arms, her deep brown eyes searching mine.
What happens next, Ethan?
As if there was ever a question, I reach into my pocket and close my fingers around the small velvet box I've been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. This is it. Slowly, I lower myself onto one knee. Savannah gasps, her hands flying to her mouth. Her wide eyes flicker between me and the ring box I open, revealing a real engagement ring. One I spent far too much time choosing because nothing felt good enough for her. She blinks.
Ethan.
I take her hand in mine, my thumb brushing over her knuckles. The first time I asked you to marry me, I gave you a contract. I shake my head. This time, I'm just giving you my heart. No terms. No conditions. I take a breath. Savannah Carter, I don't want to spend another day pretending. I love you. I want you. Marry me. For real this time. Tears spill down her cheeks, but she's smiling, soft and radiant in a way that makes my heart ache. Then she nods, laughing as she drops to her knees, throwing her arms around me.
Yes! Of course, yes!
I kiss her, deeply, desperately. And this time, when I slip the ring on her finger, I know she's mine, and I'm hers. For real. Forever.